Alright, this video is to demonstrate how you replace the bearings on a G3 PowerTap hub. There is a video out there for the SL and SL Plus version. The techniques used here are pretty similar, but there's no video out there for G3, so here we go. I've taken this apart already earlier today, so it's going to be easier than it normally would, but the principles are the same. So normally you'd take your little plastic tool that comes with your PowerTap hub, turn this, take it off, set it aside. You would then use a pry tool of sorts to carefully lift this up and out. And if you're looking to change the battery, this is how you change the battery. Next step is to pull off the two end caps. They're on there sturdy, but if you do exert enough pressure, there's an elastic on this side, so make sure you set that aside. The cap should pop off. One cap. This side, pull the other cap. And as I said, I pulled these off earlier today, so they're not on there super tight, but normally it would require a little bit of force, and they come off. Next step is to pull off the Freehub. Same principle. This was, again, it may be a little bit difficult, but it pulls straight off, like so. Right? There's a little rubber washer that you want to make sure you don't lose track of. The notch faces the Freehub. There's a ring. Just pull the ring off, set it aside, and here's where you'll notice the bearings that we're trying to get to. There's one bearing that's visible here, and the other bearing is visible inside. The bearings can be ordered online. In this video I will be showing you how to replace both of the hub bearings as well as the two cartridge bearings within the Freehub itself. And then just for reference, my PowerTap G3 hub is about a year old and I've ridden 10,000 kilometers, and the bearings, the cartridge bearings within the Freehub are pretty rough. The ones in the hub, I could probably get away with another season of use, but I'm switching them up. Easy enough to find them online. I got them at bearingscanada.com. What you're looking for is 6902. Well, if you're doing the hub and the cassette, you're looking for 36. Hang on. It's hard to freaking read. 3 times 6902-RS bearings, and then a single 6802. I splurged on these and got ceramic. And the other thing you want to be looking out for is you want to get ABEC 5 tolerance. So there's apparently different levels of tolerances for the bearings themselves, and that'll dictate how snugly they fit in the cartridge. What I noticed was in the original G3 hubs they had Enduro ABEC 5, so I just went with like for like. These are ABEC 5, but they're ceramic bearings. Bit of an upgrade there. They were about 25 bucks a piece, so not cheap. If you go with stainless steel, you can probably cut the price in half. All right, back to the job. Next step here is to pop out the axle. So here's where it's different from the SL Plus hub. In the SL Plus, if I remember correctly, you can actually push the axle out from the drive side and pop out the non-drive side bearing first. Apparently, it's the reverse in the case of the G3 hub. I say apparently because I haven't taken this apart yet, but that's what I've been reading online. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to be pushing it out from the non-drive side, and really this is all about, let me take a step back. Some videos online, and particularly the SL Plus version, what the guy does is he takes a rubber sledgehammer, a rubber mallet, and smacks out the axle. You're doing this job at your own peril. Apparently PowerTap says when you do a hub overhaul and replace the bearings, you need to recalibrate the hub. I'm convinced that if you carefully remove the bearings, you can do this without affecting the accuracy or calibration of the hub, but for you to make that call. But in order to minimize any impact, I'm choosing not to use any hammer. So instead, I'm using some odds and ends to press the axle out, carefully press each bearing, cartridge bearing out, and then we're going to press the new stuff back in. So here we go. So we're pressing from the non-drive side, and the trick here is to look around your household and find something that is slightly smaller in diameter than the axle itself. We've got that there. In my case, it's a 1/4 inch 9mm socket. And you'll need to make a trip to Home Depot and get something like this. So what I got here is a 10-24, well, long threaded piece of metal. And obviously what you want to do is make sure that you can smoothly turn your butterfly nut here, and you progressively want to go to a larger diameter washer until you feel that you've got a good snug fit for the socket. So you're going to thread that through, and on the other side, so slip it through like so. And on the other side, this is where it gets a bit trickier, because you want to give yourself loads of room to press out the axle itself. So I picked up this. It's a 1 1/4 inch polyline coupling from Home Depot. Slip that over top, and then it's a matter of, again, loading it up at the other end with a bunch of washers that will eventually allow you to slip on a tiny little nut. That looks good. Let's put on 2 of those to be safe. Whatever, doesn't matter. Smallest one goes on last. So the idea will be you're tightening, progressively tightening, and pressing the axle right out. While attempting to keep it centered, of course. Now, I did this earlier today to test drive this and make sure that I could actually successfully do this. And when I did do it, there was a bit of a pop the first time around. So I snugged it back in place, but I doubt very much it's going to pop for the second time, this time around. But I can certainly, there you go. That's the noise I was looking for. So this puppy is now being pressed out. And I'm going on faith here that I'm not going to be damaging the magnet on the axle. And it looks like everything's going fine, because it certainly feels like... There we go.
And if we take it apart on the other side, we should now be able to see that the bearing has popped, the cartridge bearing has popped right out.
And if you look here, you'll see bearing is visible and raised. So once we take out all this junk, there we go. Set that on the table. And what you'll notice here is now there's a lot of, I can press the axle out from the other side the rest of the way. This should slide off. Now, one thing I have noticed, which is interesting, is on the, if you look through onto the non-drive side, there is this funny little 6-sided piece that fits in behind that bearing. So that may be what was preventing the axle from coming out on the non-drive side. Maybe we can get a better look at that once we pull that second cartridge bearing out.
Okay, so we're going to put a washer over that. Another washer, same principle applies, of obviously making sure you get washers that are too large for the opening.
I guess I could fit this in there. I'm trying to get some distance to the distance to the socket so that I can still get a hold of the nut.
Smaller washer. Probably overkilling on the washers here, but it helps.
Okay, let's see if this works. So I got that there, and really all I've had to do so far is just kind of hold the nut on the other side. And I can feel that having pulled out. I don't know if you heard that. It's definitely coming out. And really keep turning until it becomes more difficult to do so. And I just hit it. I bottomed out. So let's see how we did. Okay, well, we're right at the end here. We still need to get it out further. So let's use something like this. So really all I'm doing is, finding another doodad in the household, putting it over top. We need to get a little bit more space so we can pull that bearing out the rest of the way. So I'm gonna put that on, and put that on.
This. Now, if you're rolling your eyes at all my doodads here, you could, as an alternative, go over to your
local auto parts store, and sometimes they'll rent you a bearing or a bearing puller set, which has all these odds and ends. So here I am doing the same thing again, holding tightly with my left hand, compressing with the right until it really feels like it's come right out. It has. You can hear by that snap.
Okay. Bearings out.
As you can see, there we go. Set that aside. Okay. So next step is to remove the two cartridge bearings that are inside the Freehub. First step here is to pop off the dust cap, like so. Set that aside. And now what you'll see is the two bearings are immediately visible. Well, one's visible, then there seems to be a spacer, and then there's a second bearing in behind. So the only curveball here is there seems to be a little, I don't know if this is a retaining key or not. So just to be safe, I'm going to unscrew this to make sure it doesn't prevent the bearings from coming out. I would tell you what size it is, but I don't know. It's small. So turn that.
Just make sure it comes out. There's some Loctite on this too. I don't know what this is for. That seems to be all. Let's take this all the way out to be safe.
Okay, seems to come out without issue. Does seem to go a fair distance in. Very small, don't lose that. So now we should be all clear. So same thing goes here. The only way to take these out is to push them out this way, and you don't have a full view of the bearing. So we revised our approach here, tried with a socket. I got the socket to go down as much as it would go. So I'm going to use an extension, which interestingly fits just perfectly in there. So I'm going to hammer on the extension. You can tell that bearing's already coming out on the underside. Okay, something's coming out there. Bottom bearing and ring.